the most simple way of describing what a target persona is it is that individual or groups of individual who actually have the challenge that your product or service is trying to solve.
Today we're talking about how to build the right persona for your customers at your startup. And we go through this in real depth about what exactly a persona is, what traits you need to put in there, what mistakes people often make when they're creating their personas, how to target your marketing towards that persona effectively, and also to know when you think you've got different personas as potential target customers, which ones to prioritize and when to start expanding that range as well. We're honored today to have with us Ina Yulo Stuve, who's the head of startup marketing at AWS. And a big part of her role is talking to so many different startups, seeing what they're trying to do, and being able to advise them and help them along their journey. So it's a massive honor to have her on today. Let's go into the show. You've worked with so many different startups, and a huge part of that is marketing, right? But I think many people at the beginning, they don't know exactly who they're targeting or what they're trying to do. For people who are unaware of what a target persona even is, could you just define that for us and why it's important?
So I think the most simple way of describing what a target persona is it is that individual or groups of individual who actually have the challenge that your product or service is trying to solve. And that's literally the most simple way for me to put it. And it's insanely important because, as you mentioned, I work with different startups in my current role, but I'm also a mentor and advisor at different accelerator incubators, and I see all of the mistakes, right? Which is interesting because they're very similar across, especially early stage startups, which is that a lot of the time you think about the problem that you are solving and the problem that your startup is solving, and forgetting if that problem is actually something that a large enough group of individuals have. And most importantly, is that something that they will pay for you to solve them? So understanding, first of all, who that group is or who those individuals are, and then actually going really deep into understanding what do they look like? What do they sound like? Where do they hang out? What is keeping them up at night? Those are all the things that you need to understand first so that you can build who this target persona is. And that also then, that is what that's what builds your marketing strategy. So you're able to actually construct a really good marketing strategy based on exactly who your target persona is. So you're always working backwards from that target persona.
I think what's really interesting as well, I think so many founders originally start off with they are the target persona, right? But what's obviously the problem there is there's so many biases involved. Do you find that most of the startups you work with, especially in the early days, do they think about a target persona, or is it something which maybe we take for granted that people listening would have mapped that out?
You're so right. And I think that there's nothing wrong with realizing that you are the target persona, because so many great ideas in the startup space start off like that, right? Where, people are like, this is something that I can't figure out. This is something that's been bothering me. This is something that's been annoying me for so long. I wish there was a product or service that solved this issue. And that's what, again, sparks this great idea. The problem there is when you realize maybe that, are there enough of yous, right? Are there enough of people like you who actually do find this to be such a big problem that needs solving? And I think that, again, starting off with, I had this problem and I figured out a solution, and here's the solution. Now you have to actually go back and test it, right? So that's the thing that I also always, try to encourage startup founders to do, is that sometimes they're further along, by the way, somewhere in their later stages. And I get surprised sometimes where they're in their later stages and they're so consumed by this product roadmap that they've built. They're consumed with maybe the first few customers who have said, yes, that's totally what we need, that they expect that the larger cohort think the same. So I always encourage startups at regular intervals. Maybe it's a half year thing, maybe it's a yearly thing, where they need to get their entire team together and actually talk about their target persona and say, is the target persona still the one who we decided was going to be that person when we first started building our product or service? And here's another interesting bit. I do a workshop which is on marketing essentials for early stage startups. And one of the interactive activities that we do is around brand archetypes, where, brand archetypes are commonly used with B2C brands, but B2B brands often think that that's not for them because they're selling into a business. But what I always say is that even when it's B2B, people buy from people. So who is that person at that company who you are selling to? And then you think about your own company and you assign it a brand archetype. So they could be anything from, we have things like the hero, or the caretaker, and then there are different values attached to it, like things like being a mastermind at this particular thing, being a sage, and we do this activity, and I always tell the founders, okay, pick one or two brand archetypes that you believe your startup emulates. I have co-founders picking two completely different brand archetypes. So that alone shows, right, that they don't really know who they're targeting because they don't really know who they want to be to that customer.
What are the really important things to define in that persona, right? Because sometimes I think people think they've got a persona that's defined well, but when you look at it from the outside, you're like, that's very vague. It covers a few too many people. And I think maybe that's a common problem for many founders, is that, like you said, where they think that they can please everybody, but especially at the beginning, you need to really nail that down. So what are some of the things that they should be thinking about to really define a true persona?
I have a really good exercise for this because exactly to your point. So I talked to some founders, and again, we do this persona building exercise, and they have something on there like, my persona is aged 25 to 45. And I always say, nope, no good. That is too big of an age range, right? And then what I say then is I say, okay, you're walking down the street and you bump into your target persona. How old are they? And suddenly it's 32. Suddenly we have a 32-year-old walking down the street. Is it a man or a woman? Because someone will say, oh, it's gender, gender neutral. Is it a man or woman? Suddenly it's a man. So then, it forces them to say, what is because you can't appeal to everyone. And if you try to build a marketing strategy that appeals to everyone, it's going to go nowhere. You're going to appeal to nobody, right? So it's a case of, what does the majority of your target persona actually look like? And then I'll say, what are they wearing? And this is, again, super important even for B2B, because it humanizes the business that they are selling into and it allows them to dive deeper into the actual psyche of that buyer persona. Because again, a target persona is pretty much a buyer persona, right? It's the person who will either be buying or influencing their stakeholders' decisions to give you money at the end of the day. And so we go into this, and then we go even deeper. What are they wearing? So then someone says, white sneakers. Okay, like expensive ones or cheap ones? Actually expensive. They really care about quality. Then, you're kind of hooking this, and you're actually encouraging the founder to say more and more of this. And then they realize they have a vision of this person. They can visualize this person. And then when you think about, okay, the next one is they're walking down the street. What are they thinking about? Because again, one common problem, right? I'm all about what are the common problems I see. One common thing is that people always assume, so founders always assume, my target audience is just dying for my solution. Okay. Whereas, and they will say they're dying for my solution. So let's give an example, right? Let's say security startup for the sake of things, right? Like, oh, they are dying for a solution that will help their head of security build a compliant and secure tech stack when they're launching internationally. And then when I say, what is this person thinking about, when they're walking down the street? And actually, that target persona, the head of security, is actually thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm the only head of security in this entire startup, and I have to build a team, and I can't find anybody who I'm actually to hire who actually meets that, the job specs. And then that's when you realize you need to actually be getting that person in the door first before going in and making the sale. So then what does that say? That might say that, hey, why don't you create some content about top tips for hiring a security team, right? So you're hooking that person in via that top of funnel content. And once you've hooked it in there, you build trust in your brand, because then they say, oh, these guys know what they're talking about. They clearly know what makes a good security team, right? What makes a good, let's say, security architect. So then I'm hooked because that's the main thing I'm thinking about. It's not about the whole launching internationally, whatever. It's about actually, how do I build the team that will support that international expansion? And then as you get, you get them into your database, maybe it's a case of, again, you give them half of that report, put your email address here to see the rest of it. Then you have them in their database. Then you start nurturing them. And then eventually, as you've nurtured them, if they're engaging with more and more things, that gives you, again, an indication that they are a warmer lead. Then you make the sale or try to make the sale.
It comes down to the burning hair problem, right? So it might be a massive problem for you, but then for your persona, is it as big as a deal as you think it is? Because sometimes we have the things that really bug us, and we think it bugs other people like us. And like you said, you've got to talk to them to work out, is that what they're thinking about or not? Because you don't want to go down the position of raising capital or getting a team in place before you've checked that problem out, right? Does your persona even care? And that's where you can pivot, you can do all those different things as well. But you mentioned there as well earlier about how you have some people you've talked to who've got two completely different personas. And there's opposites, right? And maybe those two opposites are very specific as well. How would you deal with that when people are thinking, oh, this same product is going to work in the same way for two different groups or five different groups? What's the best way to go about that in the early stages?
Usually when this happens, it's because the two, especially in the early stages, right? If you have co-founders, then these two co-founders are usually playing completely different roles, because again, they're a company of two at the end of the day, right? And that's why they have those they choose two different archetypes, because they're thinking about themselves and the challenge they are trying to solve for within the company. So you have maybe, again, a CTO, so let's say or technical co-founder, who sees themselves again as, maybe again, the sage, right? So like the values will be wisdom. And then you see a CEO co-founder who is putting themselves in as the caretaker because they see themselves as a service-led function. So it's very dependent on what each of their roles are and what they are trying to deliver for the business. So when that does happen, what I say is that you guys just need time to get together and talk, right? And understand when it comes to your marketing strategy right now, which value should we be concentrating on right now? And it doesn't have to just be one. There could be two, but they need to be complementary. And that means that when it comes to the content that you're putting out, the way that you speak about your company, because that's marketing, right? If you're a founder and you get invited on a panel, how you are describing yourself, how you are packaging your solution, that's all marketing, that's all brand building. So you can't have a technical co-founder and a CEO, more business focused founder on two different panels at the same event, describing what they're doing in two completely different ways. So again, it's a case of just talking and understanding what are we prioritizing right now? Which brand value or archetype should we prioritize for this stage of our business? Once we've earned that trust there and we've tested the market and we do see, yep, that's how they see us, then we can maybe start to expand, because brands can be multifaceted, right? Like people, right? Again, it's about humanizing your brand.
Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. The Bay HQ has a podcast, but we're so much more than that. So if you want to find out about all of the events we've got going on, all the different ways you can meet each other, as well as resources to help you build the business of your dreams, then check out the link in the show notes, sign up to our newsletter, where you get a weekly roundup, which we like to call the Bay Letter, that will keep you in the loop. If you want to help us out, the best thing you can possibly do is sign up to our newsletter and share it with your friends. So that's enough from me now. Let's get back to the show. It's interesting because me and my co-founder now got an office, right? So I hear his calls. And I can see how he's describing the company or the organization to somebody else. And it's interesting, the terms he uses might be a bit different to mine. And then I'm thinking in my head, is that the way I say it? And then it's really good to sometimes be in the room as, like I said, your co-founder, and hear them on a call just to see how do they actually describe what you're doing and how do they explain things differently. Because for us, for example, we've got the different branches of what we're doing, where some of it's talking to founders, some of it's talking to investors, and we're trying to match them up in some ways. And how you explain what we're doing to the two different groups can be very different. And what I always try to do as well is let the other person who I'm talking to, I let them talk for a bit so I can kind of understand what's the way to speak that's going to appeal to them the best. And with the different personas there as well, have you ever seen somebody just get the persona completely wrong and really go down the route of like, this is what we think our customers are? And then after research to find out, actually, this is what we should be targeting and this is who actually cares about our product?
I don't think I've seen someone who's gotten it totally wrong, which is a good thing. But I think I've seen it where there are potentially two different personas who they could be targeting, and they've maybe got their priorities mixed up. So again, I'll give you an idea, right? I talked to one startup recently where they were talking about their end customer, right? So who is their main customer? And then they said, but actually, that customer's customer is also important. So that customer's customer is actually at the end of the day the one who influences the buying decision of the customer A, right? And because they said customer A just kind of says yes, no, here's the money. But in terms of the earning trust bit, it's actually with that customer's customer. And again, that's what I always say again with B2B is that you're so focused on your customer as a business, your target persona as a business, you forget that maybe the what's keeping them up at night is how to support that end customer. So you need to almost direct and go straight to that influencer, right? Who is not going to buy from you, but is going to be the main person or entity that at the end of the day influences if your end customer will actually purchase what you're selling.
Yeah, and even looking at yourself, right? So obviously, part of your role is going to be talking to all these different companies. What have you learned about your own role, like as you've been in it, in terms of how the persona might be different to what you initially imagined?
Yeah, exactly that. I think it's so important to always be, I think just it's so simple to forget that you have to talk to your customers on a regular basis. And I think that that's, a big learning because I think I talk to my customers often because I'm always reaching out to them where they're at, right? And not expecting them to just come to our own event. So I go out to third party events quite often because again, it's a case of where are they hanging out? Let's go there. But then a lot of the time, again, it ends up in a networking session or, there's a theme around whatever the event is. So you talk about what that theme is. And it takes me some time to also sometimes forget that that is a huge opportunity for me to actually, and it sometimes comes up in the middle of a casual conversation, right? Where they're talking about their challenges, of course. And then I realize this is the perfect time. I'll say, hey, you know what? We just ran this particular marketing campaign. But let's say it wasn't as successful as we thought. And I'm not sure why. And that person will almost be happy to say, oh, this is why. It's because you did this instead of this. Like me as your target, again, your target persona, I don't care about this as that particular thing as much as they used to. And that's now insights, by the way. When I go into our marketing team, we meet collectively on a regular basis. I love it that when I come to the table with insights about our customers, I'm able to get it straight from the horse's mouth. Because we use obviously CRM systems, we use, we have a lot of data that helps us understand which campaigns are best performing, which aren't as, performing as well. And we have, again, data and numbers that back that up. But anecdotal feedback almost from the field is so important because it has, I think, in my experience, it has totally shifted our direction in many cases. Because again, I'm someone who I am more than happy to be told that something that I have done has failed, right? Or did not reach its targets. Because what I think about that is that just gives me, time and money back. I don't want to keep spending or spending time and money on something that is actually not working. So let me find out early, let me find out fast, and then let me shift gears. And that also gives me the data points to actually go back to maybe my senior stakeholders to actually say, hey, guess what? We're not doing this anymore because of X, Y, and Z.
And I guess one of the interesting things about that is how sticky and stubborn do you be about your persona? Because what you want to do is adapt to feedback and pivot. And if you're getting different feedback from different people, that's maybe different to what you thought your persona was, that you have to adapt it so you know what you're doing. But at the same time, it could just be that the first 10 people you interview just had the same opinion and that's not actually representative. How do you go about that? How do you think about when you should start making shifts in that persona?
Exactly. And that's why you have to use multiple data sources and multiple channels, right? So there's the anecdotal feedback. And again, like you said, is that am I getting that feedback by attending one event and talking to 10 people at that one event? Because that's a very non-diverse segment, right? Because if you go to an event, then the people who are there are probably very similar to one another. So we can think in a very similar manner. So if I'm capturing anecdotal feedback, it has to be from different sources. It has to be, calling some customers up. Maybe we get a customer on a panel. Maybe we get, again, a woman founder might have a different view to a male founder. So there's different sources of anecdotal feedback. And then again, also use the data, right? So as an example, we might have said there's a particular event that we've been running or a workshop we've been running. And it was a colleague who actually said, hey, the content there is just really not performing. We got some feedback from some attendees who said that they really didn't learn much from this particular feedback. I said, okay, that's interesting though, because we've run this workshop now X number of times and it's always oversubscribed, right? And oversubscription obviously shows you that there's interest in the topic. And not only that, we send a survey out after and we get some both quantitative and qualitative feedback that shows us that it's actually outperformed most of the other workshops we're doing. So, however, would be interested to hear from those who did not find it valuable as to which areas were not valuable for them. I want to learn as well, right? And then that also allows me to say, did the particular bit that they brought up, is that reflective maybe in some conversations we've had? Can we trace it back to who that person was in terms of like, what was that person's role? Why did they not find it valuable? Is it because of maybe they're in a later stage and the content was more for early stage? Then that's on us to say, you're still able to iterate, right? It's that maybe the feedback was because it was a workshop that should have actually been for more early stage founders. That helps me when we do the workshop again, we blatantly say it. The target audience for this, or those who will get the most value from this, are founders who are in the early stages of their journey, some pre-seed to seed, right? Then that already tells anybody that is seed plus or series A and above, okay, this is not for me because I'm probably more ahead in my journey.
So let's say you have found this great group of people that are your target persona. Like you said, you're oversubscribed to all of the events you're doing. How do you foster that? How do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them as part of your community there?
So I get this question a lot from startup founders, is that we want to build a community. How do we build a community? And community is such a strong part, I think, of any company's success, but it's also a very vague term. What does a community even look like? Is it a tangible thing, especially in this digital age, right? So many communities can exist completely online. And I'm sure it's the same with you for the Bay HQ, right? Is that so many members of your community are listeners. They might not have ever met you in real life. You might not have ever had any kind of face-to-face interaction with them. So how do you foster that? Very simply, there has to be consistency and trust. So you need to have built that credibility, that they trust you, that they go to you when they want to educate themselves, when they want to be connected to people or topics that are valuable to them. And there needs to be consistency. Again, is that when they come to one, either whether that's an event or again, a podcast, like with your podcasts, right? What do you do at the end of it? You say, here's how to contact this person. So you've built that connection, you've made that bridge, you've become that enabler. And then also you say, tune in next week where we interview X person. That's the call to action. There's a continuation to the conversation. It's not just, this is such an amazing episode, hope you loved it, goodbye, see you never, right? You open yourself up and allow yourself to be connected with that person, and then also give them that follow-up. So maybe a concrete example also is pre-AWS, I was the global head of fintech and financial services at a B2B startup called BrightTalk, which has now been bought by TechTarget. And I always think that was my mini founder's journey. I use that very lightly. But that's because at the time, this was maybe late 2015, early 2016, this cool new thing called fintech was coming up. And I thought, you know what? I think that this is going to be the next big thing. I think we should start a community on fintech, because BrightTalk was a B2B content and demand generation platform. It still exists. And what it was we always said it was like TED Talks for professionals. So professionals would come to BrightTalk to watch webinars and videos to educate themselves. So we were trying to build this fintech community. And what I had to do was, again, completely set the egos aside. I had to say, we know nothing about fintech. We are not seen as fintech experts in any way, shape, or form. So how do we attract the audience to this fintech content, right? And what I did realize is that we had a really strong name in financial services, specifically in investment banking and in investment management. So then we got connected by a friend of a friend to someone who was a very big name in fintech. Took her out to lunch and said, hey, here's a proposition we have. We have this platform, which by the time I left, it had 8 million subscribers. And I said, we have about 8 million subscribers here and are looking to do a monthly online digital summit for the fintech community. So one, do you think it's a good idea? And two, if it is, will you help us build this? So what she did say was, I think it's an excellent idea because there's definitely a gap. It's such a fast moving industry. And right now we only have annual physical events like Money 2020 and Cybos. So the people in the industry, that's fintech founders, and, the banks actually who want to educate themselves on the new fintech, technologies coming out, they only have one time a year, pretty much, max two, to find out about it. So they have to wait the whole year before they go to this event and get all of that content. Where she said, having something free and online, because those conferences cost a lot of money. She was saying, so by having that, again, monthly, online, free, you're regularly updated with fintech topics. She said, I think it's going to be gold. And then I said, okay, let's do our first online summit, in January. That was, again, I think 2016. And I said, if you could help us in creating it and you partner with us, we have you on there as a partner. We have you, speaking on a panel. Can you help invite the biggest thought leaders in the game essentially to come and speak? And could you help us get some sponsors? And if you do, we'll get you a percentage of the sponsorship. So that first event ended up being on digital banking, and we had the head of blockchain at Barclays, one of the co-founders of Starling and Monzo, then called Mondo, on that summit. And I think we ended up with about 2,000, 3,000 attendees. So that's how it started, right? And then what I also always encourage founders who are interested in building a community to do is, as you are building your own community, you need to, in parallel, be plugging yourself into existing communities. So that's the ego bit, right? Is that we're doing this, but guess what? We're not just expecting everyone to suddenly come to us. We need to be present at Cybox, at Money 2020. So I was like properly traveling the world at the time. My worst week was when I did 10 days of Money 2020 in Vegas, San Francisco for one evening, Manila for a Hindu for a few nights, then Hong Kong Innovate, where I was moderating a panel, and back to London. And that was like my life for a while. But again, it's because we had to be present within these other communities that already had a name and credibility. And that helped us then go into those and bring them back to our own community. And that's what, again, it's running it in parallel. But again, what I always tell startups is you need to give something in return, because people are not going to give you their time, their attention, their money if they don't think that you have something unique to you. Again, our unique selling point at the time was, again, 8 million subscribers who want to hear more about what you're doing, right? So that's what we gave them. We gave them that platform. And in return, they gave us the knowledge, the connections, the thought leadership. And by the time I left Bright Talk, that community for FinTech was at 400,000 subscribers. So, community building is something that I see so much value in, but it has to be done right, and it has to be done in a very strategic way that still is, I think, also very very authentic.
I completely agree there. I think one of the things I see a lot is people talk about building a community, but what they're trying to do is just sell to them, and it's like people aren't going to buy it. Join a community just to be sold to, right? You've got to, I say, give them value where they're part of it. And sometimes what happens, for example, is where a good community, you don't even really know what the business does sometimes, but you're like, oh, I trust these guys. I like these guys. And like, let me look at that. Oh, actually, I do need that, right? And it's that soft approach, but it can, especially if you've got, say, for B2B SaaS, something like that, where it's a big decision. If you've got more and more data about like, these people are helping, these people understand the problem, they're really knowledgeable in this area, they're way more likely to convert later on down the line. But we're going to have to move to the quickfire questions now. So thanks so much for everything you've shared so far. So the first one is, who are 3 bridge stations that you love to spotlight that you think are doing incredible work?
So I would say the 3 would be one of our AWS customers, Angie Ma. She is one of the founders of an AI startup, B2B SaaS called Faculty. City Mittal, who I know has been on your podcast, and I know we also saw each other at Sifted, but I think she's amazing. So one of the founders of Why Hungry, and why I think she's amazing is pretty much because every time I see her, I'm just energized, right? She has so much passion for what she's doing. She completely pivoted her career. And I think that, again, you can see that she has such a good head on her shoulders, and she is someone who completely gets her target customer. And she's also someone who has had to look into target customer, as in the person who is, so it's Why Hungry is a private chef for hire company, is the person who wants to hire a private chef. But very recently, she also looked into another target customer, which is the actual chef community that she's building. How do we better serve that chef community? So I love that. And third is not in the tech startup space, but Melissa Helmsley. So some of you might know her as a food influencer. She is very big on plant-based cooking, but she also makes a lot of meaty dishes because she's half Filipino. And if anyone knows Filipinos like me, we need our meat. And I love it because I think she presents her food in a very easily accessible way. And I think that because of her platform, she has properly used it to actually introduce Filipino cooking to many people. She has her mom on her show sometimes. She has videos with her mom cooking with her, which I absolutely love. So it'll be those 3.
Perfect. So if people want to find out more about you, more about what you're up to, where should we send them?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. It's Ina Yulo Stuve. Also on Instagram under Ina Yulo. I also have, speaking of food, a food Instagram, which is what I created purely because I didn't want to bug everybody on my personal Instagram with all of my food posts. So that's forever_munching on Instagram.
Is there anything that the audience can help you with?
Yeah. So I mean, again, as my role at AWS, I'm always on the lookout for, founders, operators, investors who want to take part and get involved with our AWS startups community. There's so many things that we do, whether that's creating new reports where we might need some quotes and some insights. We run a bunch of events, both in person and online. We have our biggest event of the year in 2024 coming up, which is the AWS Summit London. That's on April 24th. So again, speaking opportunities, we've got loads of them. Please reach out to me. And also, again, if you just want to understand how AWS might be able to support your startup, we are a strategic business partner and technical provider for startups all over the world. So we'd be more than happy to help and talk to you more about the different programs we have to support startups.
Awesome. So thanks so much for today. It's been really insightful. Have you got any final words to the audience?
I guess final words is just thank you for listening. I hope that this was helpful. And again, if you have any more questions or want to reach out, please go ahead and do that. And also, I think that I'm just so happy that there are platforms like this that exist. And I'm really, really happy that the community you're building is one that is so engaged. We saw that in person at Sifted, and really excited to see what you guys do moving forward.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for listening. It means a huge amount to us. And we don't think you realize how important you are. Because if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, if you leave us a 5-star review, it makes a world of difference. And if you believe in what we're trying to do here, to inspire, connect and guide the next generation of British Asians, if you do those things, you can help us achieve that mission. And you can help us make a bigger impact. And by doing that, it means we can get bigger guests, we can host more events, we can do more for the community. So you can play a huge part. So thank you so much for supporting us.